blew up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, ICF Orange County. We are so excited today. We're going to be having Doug Gfeller, who is a past president of our chapter, interview Cynthia Loy Darst, and I'm so excited about having her here today. You know, one of the reasons that I thought of Cynthia is because she has been in the coaching profession for so long, and has also run a coaching school, CTI, right?
Well, I haven't run it, but I am an influential figure there. Yes.
Okay, great. And so having had the opportunity to see so many coaches grow into the profession, you're probably going to have a lot of examples of coaches that worked in the profession and succeeded, and then those who struggled, and that's kind of what we're going to be getting at today. Before we get started, I have a few administrative things. Number one, we are recording, right? Yes, we are recording. And number two, for chats and Q&A, number two, you're going to get CCEUs, and you don't have to have any code words to get the CCEUs, but you do need to be on for the whole time, and we'll be just emailing you afterwards. As far as Q&A and chats, I want to welcome you to send any questions in throughout the conversation, but we don't want Doug and Cynthia to interrupt their flow of conversation. So I won't be addressing them right away. I'll be kind of in the background, maybe commenting on your question. And then when Doug and Cynthia open it up for questions, I'll be sharing a couple of your questions with them. Okay, and we have something like 41 people on the call today, so I want to welcome all of you. We had this idea of maybe having everybody say where they're checking in from, but because we're already at 11, I would like to get started. And, you know, one of the things I want to say, I'm going to let Doug say more about Cynthia because he's known her for a long time. But one thing I want to say about Doug, I've known Doug for a long time, and he not only has an MCC and has also had the opportunity to be in coaching for a long time, but he has run a radio show where he's interviewed CEOs and coaches for years. And I don't know how many total you've interviewed, Doug, but I would guess you're probably close to 100 overall after
once a week for 7 years.
So yeah, if we could do the math, that's well over 100 interviews that Doug has done. So, and I've been interviewed by Doug. He is wonderful at interviewing. So basically for this webinar, we're basically going to be able to sit back and relax, and I'm going to be muting and turning my video off and handing it over to Doug. And for the rest of you, go ahead and enjoy. Feel free to chat. I'll be answering your chats and questions in the background. And we're going to go get started, and I'll hand it over to you, Doug.
Okay. Well, look, if you're here on the webinar, you obviously got the notice, and so you've read the background on Cynthia. I hope you got all 7 pages of her historical accomplishments. It's a small book. But let me just highlight the key things about Cynthia. One, she's my coach. Okay, that's through. We're through with that now. That's all the credibility she needs. I met Cynthia in 1997 when I started my training with CTI, and she was an instructor. I was required to hire a coach, not particularly willing, and I picked Cynthia because she was the person that made me the most uncomfortable. She was the most different. And that is the truth. She is the person that was the most different from me. I showed up in my 3-piece suit and tie, and she showed up in her actor garb, not serious about anything, apparently. And it has been a match made in heaven for me. She still continues to function as my coach. So we're going on 23 years, Cynthia. I still need help. I still need a lot of help. And she was the one that encouraged me to become an MCC in '99. So she is an experienced coach, a wonderful friend of mine. She has got a book out. I want to make sure you know about that. It's called Meet Your Inside Team, How to Turn Internal Conflict into Clarity and Move Forward with Your Life. She is so dedicated to the inside team that in her coaching with me, my inside team has been outside for years now. So she's turned it completely upside down. Cynthia, welcome to our show here today.
Doug, thank you so much. And thank you, ICF Orange County, for asking me to come and be with you today.
Okay.
Oh boy, 23 years, Doug, for God's sake. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just to make it clear, I do know you were 16 when you started, but you were 5.
Apparently.
Apparently. Okay, so the obvious question to ask somebody like Cynthia is how you got your clients when you started. But what I'm really curious about is how things have changed, and that's going to be kind of a theme to our conversation today. I want you to share a lot of your knowledge. You have a lot of background that's just really interesting and fascinating, but I'm really interested in how things have changed. So talk a little bit, Cynthia, about, how's it different now from when you started in terms of getting clients?
Well, the biggest thing when you ask that question is that the world of coaching has changed, just absolutely. So I was around in the very, very beginning of the ICF when there were just a few of us in a room together trying to figure out, do we need an association? I mean, that's how far back it was. And so back in those days, anytime I said to someone, well, I'm a coach, or I'm a professional coach, or I'm a, business coach, we still didn't know what to call ourselves. People were like sports, like there was really no understanding about what coaching is or why people would pay us to have a conversation, right? So it was that world. And then to see over the years the players who have brought so much to the world, everyone from Laura Whitworth and Henry Kimsey House and Karen Kimsey House, who started CTI, to Thomas Leonard over at Coach U, and to people in all the different coaching schools, to see that growing, to see ICF accreditation growing, and literally, so now it is normal for, if we're out in the world and I said I'm a professional coactive coach or organizational coach, people go, oh yeah, my friend so-and-so also went through coach training, or, oh yeah, I worked with a coach. And like, that's normal now. And one other thing that I thought was really kind of interesting. So for years, the ICF has been just working to gain ground and make sure that there's credibility in the coaching world. Last week, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a wonderful business consultant, wonderful. And she's like, what is this thing up with the ICF? There's a client who contacted me and they said, well, we can't hire you because you're not ICF accredited. and I was like, she was upset about it, but inside I was going, oh yay. Oh yeah. Here, we are on the map. We are here. People know about us. It is a different world. So that's the way I see it, Doug.
It is. I've experienced the same thing. In those days, we spent our time explaining what coaching was about. And today, that isn't the conversation at all.
No.
So what is the conversation when you approach a new prospect? What is it that they really want to find out right away?
One of the things that, sometimes I think that one of the reasons I've been coaching so long is because I took the remedial route.
That was me.
Right? It has taken me years to be able to say what coaching is or why to do it or whatever. And to this day, the thing that's most effective for me is not to try to explain coaching. That has never been particularly useful. What I always do now is when I'm in a conversation with someone, I'm listening for the need. I'm listening for what they are saying, what they are talking about. Oh my God, my life is so busy. I just don't know. I don't know how to move forward, right? There's the need. Wow. I work with people. I work with people to get clear on what they really want and handle their time more effectively. You want to have a conversation? so nice and simple. So that's what I'm listening for. I don't go around trying to explain coaching because it's too confusing.
I think that's so effective. I mean, it is about satisfying a client's needs.
Yeah.
It's not about who we are, what we do, how we train, what our methodology is. It's what's your problem, and can I help you in any way?
Yeah. Or what is it? So Doug, you and I, we've always had a little bit of a thing. It's like, I'm not listening for an issue or a problem. I'm really not. I'm listening for possibility. I'm listening for what does this person really want? What are they really up to? And how do we unleash that? Right? So, okay, if they have a concern or problem or issue to start with, but I'm not going to be spending a lot of time there.
Okay, so you coaches out there, you realize she just nailed me. In a very nice way, but she just nailed me. I said, what's the client's problem? As if that's the reason I'm coaching. And she said, no, what's the client's opportunities? That alone, if you hung up right now on this conference and you took that away, you would have moved your career forward tremendously. I'm still trying to learn. But from a business standpoint, we are so problem-oriented that we just slip into that mode, and we really have to guard against it.
Right. It is the seduction of every coach that I've worked with, is that we, coaches, people who come to coaching are smart people that are used to, they want to help people. We all want to help people. And so it's easy to go into that problem solving. What's the challenge? Let's fix it. But that's actually not coaching. That could be wonderful consulting, maybe wonderful business advice. It's not coaching.
Yeah.
Right. So just something that I keep working with, and I keep working with other people to get better at too.
One other thing you and I shared along the same line of conversation is that if, as a coach, you're focused on problem solving, you are going to have short-term clients. Problem gets stalled, they don't need you anymore.
That's right.
But if you're focused on opportunity enhancement,
right,
that never goes away. We're never done with that, right?
That's right. Who is this person? Who are they becoming? What's next for them? What's the way of being that this person is developing for themselves, right? That's much better than just little short, oh, I've got a problem, writing a book or organizing my desk or whatever. That stuff isn't, yeah.
And this is a great time. I hope you guys don't mind, but a question came in, and it was sort of along this line. If you both kind of came into coaching before it existed, especially you, Cynthia. And the question that came in is, how did you guys come up with coaching if it didn't exist before? And I think what people were doing more in the past was more of that consulting thing, sort of looking for problems, giving advice, but then suddenly somebody came up with coaching. Do you have a sense for how that happened?
Take it away, Cynthia.
Yeah, well, here's where I would point you. There's actually a book written on it. Vicki Brock wrote what is it? I have it over there. Hang on. I'm not seeing it, but it has to do with the history of coaching. Let me give you a few thoughts on it. And Doug, maybe you have some here as well. So in the 60s, 70s, there was a strong personal growth movement. Things like the Summit, things like Werner Erhard and Associates, NLP training, like lots of stuff was coming in on a personal level. Some people that called themselves coaches back in the 80s were people who were therapists that had moved into the business world. That's what I'm finding. But the term coaching, I believe it was Thomas Leonard, who's one of the founders of the ICF, who actually started the terminology of calling us coaches. And Laura Whitworth and Henry House just continued with that from our side. Doug, do you have anything any other thoughts on that?
No, but you kind of lead me down another road about the ICF is very insistent about coaching as being different from consulting.
Yep.
A lot of the training is very much geared to listening, not giving advice.
Right.
You want to talk about that a little bit, Cynthia? I mean, in the real world, which we both live in, how does that work?
It works much more effectively than giving a lot of advice. That's how it works. So here's the thing, the biggest difference. It's like one of the other things is when people start to ask me, well, what is coaching and what's the difference between coaching and consulting? I, as a coactively trained coach, I'm coming from the point of view that my client is more of a master of their own life than I will ever be. So at CTI, we call that stance knowing that our client is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, right? So one of the things that many of us have been brought up to believe is that people need to work a certain way. You know, it's good to get out, it's good to have a plan, good to get out in front of things, good to not be pushed by a deadline, all these things. And the fact of the matter is human beings work different ways. One human being, they need a deadline and they don't get anything started until 2 days before that deadline. And that's what works for them. It gets them going. Other people, they need to map things out and do it sequentially or whatever. So my job is to be really curious to help a person unpack and become more aware of how they think, how they operate, what's their best way, rather than doing something that society may have called the right way. Yeah.
Very good. You know, I've worked as both a consultant and a coach. And I have to tell you that the satisfaction level is much higher as a coach.
Yeah.
The reason is when I give people absolutely brilliant advice and tell them how to do and solve their problem,
Right.
they hardly ever take it.
Right.
It's my idea, not theirs.
Exactly. It doesn't quite fit for them, or they don't quite know how to wrap their thinking around it.
Yeah, they have no ownership in it.
Yeah.
And then when I go home, I'm exhausted because I've given you my best and you kind of threw it out.
Yeah.
It's really depressing. If I stick to the coaching model, my goal really is to just listen to your issue and help you look at it from a different perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is the business saying that says no problem can be solved from the same point of view that you created it.
Exactly. Right. The only way to even notice what perspective someone is in is to really get curious and help them name it and help them become aware of it. Right.
And that opens up opportunities that I never knew about, and it opens up opportunities that the client never knew about.
Absolutely.
Because they put these blinders on as if this is the only way to do it. What do you mean, Doug? Look this way? I never did that.
Right.
So, you know, we titled the talk today, what is your measure of success, dollars or clients?
Wow.
Let's jump right to the real heart of that issue, Cynthia.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I have about 12 different answers to this, Doug, and you can, keep redirecting me. For me, actually, let me just say a thing. I am seeing one of the things that is a bit of a concern or annoyance to me in our world is that there are so many people these days out there helping people grow their business, which is cool. However, many of them are saying, here's the right way to do it. Here's the way to do it, and you need to be blogging all the time, or you need to be doing this all the time, or whatever. And some people are great at that. Most people feel bad because they feel like they're not doing it right. And to me, all of that is a smokescreen. The most important thing for you to do as a coach to build your business is for you to be living a fulfilling life yourself, where you're not shooting yourself to death. 2 is for you to be in conversations with people about their life, right? One of the things, so by the way, I came at this from, I had been a professional actor, and then I had been in sales. And I've got to tell you that if initially you think that what you're selling as a coach is you, and there's a little bit of truth to that. But what you're actually offering someone is their life, is their way forward, is their possibility. And so when you start talking to just about any human about what they want next in their life, what would they like to see by the end of the year? What's one thing that if they were to do it every day would make a substantial difference in their life? Those simple questions, that's the kind of thing that has people go, oh, right? So for me, I've made good money. I've done well. And the money of this has never been my prime goal. My prime goal in my coaching practice is joy, is connection, is working with people that I fit with, that feel right to me. And then to have an eye on what kind of business do I want as a coach. So let me say a little bit about that.
Okay.
I think there's also a lot of pressure for coaches to build their business. You should have a this, and you should have a that, and you should do that. Well, you want to get clear on, do you want a lifestyle business as a coach, or do you want a growth business as a coach? So a growth business to me is someone like a Rick Tamlin, who is creating this amazing thing with Produce You and the Bigger Game, and he's growing it, and they're growing a company. And that's exactly his sweet spot. For me and my husband, David, we have a company together called Team Darst. And our company is not interested in getting any bigger. Our company, I know, right? It's a blasphemy. Our company is about being able to structure our life in the way that works for us, be able to take time off to go do things we want to do. We have a bookkeeper. That's our one employee. And we have lots of clients that we love. We have individual clients. We have team clients. We both work for both CRR Global and for CTI. We have a variety, but that's what's fulfilling and right for us. So there's a thought for you, Doug.
There's more than one thought there. But and the thing that really hits me about it is that so many coaches, when they're starting, and we can all remember this, and when you're starting, it's hard to listen to the advice we're giving and go, oh yeah, sure, I need to make some money. Come on,
Right.
How can I have this? But like any business, you start with a business plan about what it is you're trying to achieve, what it is you want. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to work with? How much money do you want to make? What is it going to look like? How much time off? And you go from there. And I find very few beginning coaches have really clarified for themselves what it is they're working towards.
Well, one of the things that you're talking about here, Doug, is that I'm just thinking about one of my new clients who is starting her coaching practice. And there's a moment, if somebody is coming out of a corporate world or out of any other business world, and they're starting their coaching practice for the first time, they're often not aware, oh, I'm the CEO of my business. How, as CEO, what's my meta view? How do I want to run my business? What are the values of my business? What's the structure? What kinds of things do I say yes to? What do I say no to? What are my working hours? You know, things like this, because what I tend to see happen is people are saboteur, negative self-talk. Oh, you should work harder. You should work hard. You've got to work. You know, or they get lost and they don't know what to do. And either one of those, you don't want that as your CEO. You want to get grounded in your adult self, your leader, the leader part of you, and get clear on what you want to create.
Let's be clear here too. I don't think either one of us are saying money isn't important.
No.
You have to make some money or you can't practice what you love to do. But the way you build your practice is not by focusing on the cash register. And the way you build your practice is by focusing on your first client.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it worked for me, by taking one client and making that client the most important client in the world, and not worrying about the fact that I didn't have 10, which somebody said you should have 10.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I had one, and I really focused on the one. I serviced them to death. And then they made a referral, and so on and so on. And I think that's a thought that I hope new coaches can kind of get hold of.
Yeah.
Take some of the pressure off their back.
Well, you know, Doug, one of the pieces that you're pointing to here, you know, the number one cause for business failure of any kind is improper financing. And so what I see is it's very similar to an acting career. You don't want to just try to sort of keep scraping by. If you need money, if money is a thing, and it is for most human beings, make sure that you have other income. Maybe it's still working a full or a part-time job. Maybe it's getting some kind of loan. Maybe it's, I don't know what, but you don't want to have constant stress about, is my next coaching client going to pay my rent, or am I broke? That is not what you want.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we're talking about too is to decide what kind of practice you want, what kind of clients you want. You know, for me, I decided early on that I didn't want 100 clients. I wanted a few clients that would stay with me for a long period of time, that I could get to know really well and have a personal relationship with.
You're such a man of connection, Doug. It's one of your wonderful things.
I just don't like to sell. Why would I want to keep selling new people? You know, I think clients I've gotten, I don't have a client I've had for under 7 years.
Wow. You know, it's so, one of the things you're also pointing to is, like, I've known coaches that only want to work for someone for 3 months and that's it.
That's good.
Okay. Like, so here's my little magical formula for figuring out your coaching niche. And it's this. So sometimes, you know, coaches come to me and go, I don't know how to get started. I don't know how to find a niche. I don't know what it is. So just take a moment and imagine a client, a client that you just love working with. What are they like? What's the focus of your conversation? What are they up to? And now think of another client that you also love working with, right? And as you start to imagine those people, then start to look for what they have in common, right? And notice, are they all of a certain age? Do they all have a certain topic that they're wanting to work on? What is it that is the commonality? And that's your niche.
See, and I think I agree with you completely. I would add one thing. I think the worst person that you could work with for defining your niche is yourself. You need other people to help you because they see more clearly than we do ourselves what things we are really good at, what strengths we really bring in. So I really, I didn't find my niche till I had other people like you go, isn't it obvious?
Well, here's something, Doug, you're going to get a big kick out of. I remember lo, those many years ago when you said that you wanted to work with me. Believe it or not, I was terrified.
What?
And here's why. Because you were an older businessman. And you're a little older than me, just a few months. But that, like, I was like, oh my God, I could never coach my father because he was like this. He was one of those old, dinosaurs and blah, blah, blah. And I had this fear that, now that I know you were never like my father, but I had a fear. And so just notice, for anybody listening to this, just notice if there's some type of person that you have a concern or fear about, and know that it's not your client. That those people that they're a lot, God bless, other people can work with them, but you're going to work with the ones who fit with your heart, with your being. Yeah.
Not everybody is the perfect client for all of us, and there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't think this is a good match. Thank goodness. I will have to, I can't avoid it, but I will share the story that when I came home from CTI and told my wife that, it was a great session and I've hired a coach. And she said, you've hired a coach? I said, yeah. She said, what's his name? I said, his name is Cynthia Loy Darst. She said, you hired a woman? I said, yeah. She said, so what are you going to do? I said, well, she's going to help me, get clear on what I want to do and where I'm going. She said, so you're going to talk to this woman about all your biggest issues and not me? It was a tense moment.
Right?
Didn't understand what coaching was, Of course, we fast forward a few years, and now whenever we have one of those tense conversations, she says, why don't you take and talk to Cynthia about that? They become very close friends, unfortunately. What do you have for us, Naheed?
I have a question that came in that's directed towards you, Cynthia, and it's actually a two-part question, but it is, what is your ideal client and your most annoying client? And the second follow-up question is, what is the balance for you between team coaching and individual coaching? If you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, it's great. So here's, let me start with this. I have a motto. My motto with clients is that I never keep clients who cost me. So if someone is costing me like financially in a way that feels like they're taking advantage of me, that's no good. If somebody is costing me, it's usually emotionally. If I feel like they're difficult or challenging, if I see their name on my calendar and I go, that's not my client, I now will just send them on. It's got to be a fit. So a good client for me is someone who is interested in knowing more about themselves, who is hungry to learn, who is willing to explore. It's not really about big or small. It's everything from someone who's learning to be a coach, someone who's an attorney, someone who is a C-suite at a major company. It doesn't matter what role they're in. What matters is, for me, their willingness and curiosity about themselves. So that's my niche. I call my niche world changers. So it's not about that they have to be out changing the big world. It could be that happens sometimes. It's also about them wanting to change their own world. Right?
Yeah, so it sounds like your niche is more psychographic, right? People who don't drain you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, not just people who don't, but people who I mean, yeah. Well, so that's a component of it. It's people who have a willingness.
Great.
And people who want to shift something in their world, right?
Yes, and there was a follow-up question to that I just want to get in here, but don't forget the other parts. And someone asked, how do you fire them?
Okay, so if something is really not a fit and we kind of try working with it, then I will actually say, you know what, I'm really starting to get a sense that we're not quite fitting over here. And I would love to send you on to a few coaches. I always send on to a few coaches that I think might be a better fit for you. And I don't want to leave you here. Well, you go talk to those people and get back to me and let me know what you come up with. If you're going to move on, or if you want to stay with me. And then if there is a want to stay with me, we're going to redesign our alliance. We're going to get in there and we're going to work it through and have a come to Jesus conversation. Right?
Awesome. Thank you.
The mix of my own clients, someone asked, I do mainly one-on-one still, and I do a good amount of teamwork with my husband, David Darst.
Who is a phenomenal coach also. Let me just sort of follow up on that question about firing a client and how you fire them. I think sometimes it happens more often than we realize, but it's not that I fire somebody because we can't coach together. It's because this isn't a good time for us to continue coaching, period, because the client has kind of burned out on coaching or something else in their life. And I look at it as the fact that I have lots of clients where we have rerun relationships that we've worked together well for a couple of years, and then they need to take 6 months off. And then they come back and go, you know what, something came up.
Well, Doug, what I hear you talking about is the difference between completing with a client and firing a client. And that to me is two very different things.
Thank you.
So, so it's not, I'd say the greater part of my clients don't stay with me for 23 years. I have
slow learner. What can I say?
Most of my clients are with me for 6 months, or we work on a certain place, and then they come back and and then maybe do quarterly calls with me or things like that. And so that's one thing, and that is obviously the bulk. There have been moments over the years, like I had one client who started trying this technique that he thought was supposed to have me be a more effective coach, where he would get on and sort of make fun of what I was doing and be kind of arrogant and intimidating with me. And he did this once or twice, and I said, what are you doing? What? When you go, wow, you sound like you weren't prepared for this call. Like, what are you trying to do? And he was like, oh, I just want to get the best out of you. And I said, well, honey, that's not the way to do it. And I am not the good coach for you. And we, so do not, my opinion, do not keep clients that you're tolerating for some reason. Right? We as coaches need to walk our talk of fulfillment and of being able to say yes to things and no to things, and being able to have clear boundaries and live into them. And that sometimes takes time to establish, but the truer you are to yourself and your own integrity, the easier this whole thing goes.
And I think that really goes to, you called me on completing the relationship. I think there are coaching engagements where we just reach a point for whatever reason that it's no longer working well anymore.
Right.
And let's take a break from it and let's come back, but end it in a way that allows the client to come back, that he feels comfortable.
Right.
Back. you know, I work with a lot of small business owners, and sometimes they just get so overwhelmed with other stuff going on, they can't give any more time to coaching.
Right. They need to be doing their thing for a while. Yep.
Got to go do this, or I'm going to go under, and then I'll come back. And they do. And it's wonderful. So tell me, along those same lines, this is an unbelievably hard question to answer. What's an ideal coaching session for you? And what's an ideal coaching session for the client?
Golly, there's so many of them. And they're different. They're different ways, right? But an ideal session for me is one where both of us are fully focused on our together. So the client have a space where they can really focus in on themselves. And there are two things. So sometimes the client comes to the call with a real thing that they want to work on, a thing that's been driving them nuts. Other times, I've had some wonderful sessions when people come to the call and go, I don't know what I want to work on today, right? So I don't know. It's like one of the things I deeply love about coaching is how when you start that call, you never know where you're going to go. And every call is new and creative. And I think that's what I love. And so in that mode, many of them are ideal.
Okay. And from the client's perspective, what is an ideal session for them?
My sense is that when we come toward the end of the call, they go, holy cow! Wow, I didn't know we could get all that done in this amount of time. Oh my gosh. Oh, I have a whole new way of seeing that. Or this feels so right. Or something where there's a sense of opening of possibility and of them feeling empowered and ready to move forward their way. That to me would be ideal on that end.
See, what I loved about both of those answers and what was common in both answers was that neither one of them was centered about accomplishing anything. They were about feelings. They were about leaving the person, whether it was you as the coach, yep, or whether it was the client, leaving them with the feeling of excitement about going forward after the session. Would that be fair?
That'd be fair. It's, even if they're going through something horrible. I've been working with a client who lost her son to drugs, and the grief that she's been going through is unbelievable. And so our work together, it's not that she's coming out the other end of the call joyful, but it is about having more space to be exactly where she is. One of the things that I think is probably a strength of mine is that, like, for many years, I was an absolute doing machine. and I would push past and overcome negative feelings or should feelings or whatever to just, get her done. And that's very normal in our Western culture. One of the things that I've been noticing in the work that I do with Inside Team and in the work that I do generally is that if a person really wants to accomplish something, yes, of course, there's a planning, there's a doing to it. But if their energy is not aligned with what it is they want, then it's just going to be a struggle. It's going to be a lot harder. So I'm always listening for, is there a should cloud here? Is there a lack of confidence? Or is there a something that we need to address in who they're being in relationship to this thing they want. That to me is essential. And when that lines up, the doing becomes, just easy.
I just want to sort of pause for a second there. It sounds so serious, and yet it doesn't need to be. I want to say that one of the key things that I have learned from you that I try to model in my coaching practice, and I don't do it as well as you do, is that no matter what the problem is that I bring to you in a coaching session, and what the issue is, what the feelings are, whether I walk away happy or sad, whether I walk away moving forward or not, I have never walked away from a coaching session that I didn't feel supported, that I didn't feel there was somebody there for me that was listening and wanted the best.
Wow.
And I think you do that for me. I'm sure you do that for all your clients. As coaches, we can focus on leaving the client with that. It lasts all day,
Well, Doug, one of the things I really, first, thank you, but one of the things I really appreciate about that is in our ICF core competencies now, it's like one of the things that we're really focusing on is partnering the client. Partnering, not doing it for them, not telling them what to do, but coming alongside and being their partner in the journey. And that's what you're describing.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not many places people can go for that. The one other thing I want to just caution about is the label. I get so obsessed with people telling me they're a business coach or they're a life coach. Like, I'm a business coach. Don't mention anything to me about your family. We don't want to hear about that. I'm a life coach. Don't tell me anything about your finances because I'm a life coach. I've never found I might say I'm a business coach because I'm more comfortable dealing with those problems.
Right.
But I've never had a business client that we didn't talk about very personal things.
Right.
It's the way it is. So get prepared for it. All right, enough of that. Come on, tell us about the inside team. I know we don't have enough time, but everybody wants to know who's the inside team. And I refuse to go stand in a corner and start dragging them out.
Well, the inside team is basically, it refers to the conversation that goes on in your head, right? And so as coaches, we are familiar that our clients are going to have different thoughts about their life. I know at CTI and some other schools, there's an idea about an inner gremlin or saboteur or something like that. Well, what I've noticed is that over the years, I noticed that it wasn't just one voice. I noticed that with almost every human, including myself, there's a conversation that goes on. And it usually starts something like, there's a part of me that really wants to get this done, but this other part of me is really having trouble getting on board. It just wants to sit and watch TV, And so bit by bit, I started noticing, this is really going on. So the inside team, the idea of it helps us to identify, well, who the heck is talking? Who's doing that talking? Who's there? What is it they're trying so hard to get across? And then once we find out about them, we start doing internal relationship coaching with them to rearrange the way they work so it feels like we're running the team rather than the team running us.
Does this qualify as team coaching?
It is a kind of team coaching. And go ahead.
No, it is team coaching because you're dealing with multiple voices.
It is.
Multiple perspectives.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So hold up that book again because I want people, really, this is very, very good. This is the Inside Team. It's available on Amazon. It's good material for coaches. Thank you.
One of the things that is handy for coaches is that it actually has a little piece about, if you're a coach, how to use this with your clients. And it gives you lots of great, like, just handholds about how to do this with a client. I've had coaches report back to me who are just meeting me for the first time. Oh my God, I've had your book for a while and I've been using it with my clients and it's so fun. So that's really fun, you know, people I've never worked with. I'm also going to be doing an inside team training in Toronto coming up on May 29th. So if anybody's listening from that part of the world, come join me.
Now, for those of you who just sit at home and coach on the phone all the time in your fuzzy slippers, Cynthia and David are all over the world. I never know where they're going to be. And I have no clue how you get all these connections all over the world. But it is amazing to me.
Oh, thanks.
Talk a little bit about cultural differences in coaching.
Oh, yeah, it's been a fascinating thing. You know, in 2000, maybe even a little before that, CTI started offering courses in Japan for the first time. And so there's now an entire Japanese leader body, and courses are offered in Japanese and all that. But back then, when it was brand new, the kinds of questions that we in the Western world ask someone, you know, what do you want? What is your vision? Something like that. How do you imagine this going? These seemed extraordinarily intimate for the Japanese culture. And they didn't. So the way we had to set up the courses was that we're going to be playing a game in the next few days. And the way you win this game is by being able to ask very direct questions.
Sneaky, very sneaky.
Yeah. So that was, so what I've noticed over time is how, like, I've led courses in Japan, South Korea, Egypt, Norway, Sweden, United Kingdom, France, Tel Aviv, Mexico City, all over Canada, in the United States. So I've worked with people from a lot of different cultures. And the fact of the matter is that coaching works. People are hungry to have these kinds of conversations with someone, and there is something about being culturally aware. Recently, for the first time, I've had my two first South American clients, well, three, and so part of our initial contracting in designing the alliance is just to acknowledge that we come from different cultures, and to please let me know if I'm doing something that isn't quite working for them, or please educate me about their culture, so that, you know, because we make mistakes with each other even when we're from the same culture, much less different ones. So okay. I think hopefully that answered your.
It did. And before I give Nahid a chance here, I want to point out something that you have talked about as an experienced coach, a successful experienced coach. You are still talking about core competencies.
Yes.
Designing the alliance.
Yes.
The basic building blocks of coaching.
You bet.
You know, I think that when you convinced me to go for the MCC, my thought was that the only value it would have was I might get new clients because of it. And that really hasn't seemed to, nobody knows but another coach. But what it has done for me is the requirement to continually get CCEUs, to keep up to date with what's going on in the changing coaching world, has been a lifesaver.
Yes.
So thank you for demonstrating that the basic building blocks are still necessary.
Oh, thank you, Doug. Yeah.
Nahid, did you have a question? Or
I don't have a question, but I thought that if anybody from our audience had a question, maybe we could open it up and have them type a few questions in. Would that be okay?
Perfect.
Great.
And, you know, you guys also can also see the Q&A box. So if we get any coming in, you're welcome to open it yourself and answer it. And I'm also happy to navigate. But I just want to let all of you out there, we're about to wrap up our webinar. We've got about 5 more minutes, but we could take a couple more questions if anyone has something burning. And oh, here comes one. I'll read it aloud. Would love to hear more about working with the inside team.
Well, you know, you could actually Google this. You can go to teamdarst.com or Google me on Google. And I've done several presentations on Meet Your Inside Team that are like an hour long. So I want to offer that to you right off the bat. The thing that, here's what I would say about it. The reason that I think it's a good idea to find out about and learn more about is because more often than not, when our clients get stuck or there's something that they're not moving forward with, that it's because of a conversation in their head. And so as coach, the more you can allow yourself to get curious with your client about, let's really take a look at how you're thinking about this. You know, so if the client keeps saying, yeah, I really want to write this book. I really want to write this book. And then they don't write the book, right? Nothing's happening. No writing is happening. Great. What happens when you get off the phone with me? What is it that happens? What are the thoughts you're having? You know, oh boy, I want to write the book. That's great. I really don't have time for this. I'm really busy today. Let me put it off till tomorrow. Side team. Who else is there? Who else has a voice in this? And so to start pulling it apart, to start noticing who's the one that's judging everyone, right? Oh, you don't know enough to write a book, blah, you know? Or who's the one that goes, oh, you know, what will people think? And I'm scared about that. So if any of these, I'm going to call them players on their inside team, if any of these players are running the book project, we're in trouble, right? So to start finding out about that and then helping them discover their way forward. It's not about us telling them what to do. It's about them becoming aware, this core competency of creating awareness. Oh, so this child is in charge of my book? No wonder it's not working. Let me give her something else to do, and let me find another part of me that I want to put in charge.
Let me just add here, because I've been on the other end of Cynthia's coaching on the inside team with many of my problems and issues. And I want to say that this is not a tool that is used only in the coaching session. I think what's really critical here is this is a tool that Cynthia is giving to the client to use in between sessions, to use in their life. And to that extent, it's extremely powerful. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
How are we doing, Naheed?
Yeah. I think this has just been amazing. I'm so pleased I could listen for another half hour. Thank you so much. We do have to wrap it up though.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thanks for having me here. And here's something that I want everyone to take away who's still on the call listening. Okay, I want for you, as you go into your day, as you go into your week, to allow yourself to more and more connect with what you really, truly want. Notice those shoulds. Thank them for sharing. Find out what they're so concerned about, and then see who you want in charge, if not that.
I absolutely love that. So agree with it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we have a few admin things that we want to just say as far as closing. First of all, we had 2 people call in and they weren't on their Zoom. They just probably called in on their phone. For those 2 of you, if you could send an email to ICF and just let us know your names. The rest of you that called in with Zoom, we have your names, we have your contact information. We're not going to have any trouble following up with you. But those of you that called in on the phone, just let us know who you are. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about what we have coming up. We've got so much going on.
Cool.
In 2 weeks, we have Vanya Kuntz, and she's going to be starting her 2020 series on coaching and technology that will give us a glimpse into how some of the greatest innovators are disrupting our industry and propelling it to the next level. And on March 17th, she's going to be interviewing Alex Pascal, who is an executive coach and founder of Coach Logics. So that should be really interesting. And then on the 19th, we're going to have our in-person event, and you don't want to miss this, with Sharon Nanor. I think I need you to pronounce his last name. Srivatsa, I think it is. But he is a CEO and serial entrepreneur, and he's going to teach us the mechanics of client acquisition from a business perspective. So we're going to get some business training in that one, and for sure you don't want to miss that. Nanor, do you want to correct my pronunciation of his name?
No, I think it's fine.
I don't know if I can hear you.
It's fine.
Okay. All right. Any special codes to get your CCEUs, because we have that information, so we'll be sending it to you. And we have some text that maybe you guys can read, Doug and Cynthia, but tons of thank yous here. Thank you so much, Doug and Cynthia. I see your email, but text back. So there's so much more to talk about. I just want to thank you so much for joining us, Cynthia.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Amazing.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you.